This is great. Thank you so much for the privilege of sharing today. Wow, what an honor. What an incredible place this is. What a wonderful family that you are. So we're back from Kenya. So for those of us who haven't heard too much about what the Kenya Initiative is, basically it's an educational support sponsorship program. In 2009, friends of ours had spent a summer in Kenya, and my buddy and I went out to talk about it, and my heart was broken, and God planted seeds inside me for the Kenyans and for a number of young men in particular, and then it has just continued to blossom and explode. So it's really amazing to be part of this initiative, and I must say that about a year ago there was a prophetic Zoom meeting, and I had come to the meeting saying, God, I really need to hear from you about the Kenya Initiative, because I feel like it's been all my initiative, and I've experienced you on my trips to Kenya, but where are you? And in this prophetic Zoom call, the man didn't know anything about me, and he basically said, Lori and I, get your passports ready. And then on and on and on. And then within a few days, we were actually invited to a wedding in Kenya by the first man that we had sponsored through university. So this definitely confirmed to me that, yeah, God was with me. And then very recently, I just felt like God saying to me, this is not just I'm with you in this initiative, this is my initiative. The Kenya Initiative is God's initiative, and I get to be part of it, and now many, many more get to be part of it. So I just want to thank the church for the unbelievable support. Like, I don't think I or we could have taken any more. The support here, both financially, the prayer support, both during our trip. I know that many people said they were praying for us, but also the launching. I remember Adam saying that you might be able to get a return on your plane tickets because we're going to launch you, and we were launched. And I just feel so loved and supported by you all. It's almost more than I can take in. So thank you.
I think the word was catapulted, right? Catapulted to Kenya. Yeah, I'd like to echo that and just say thank you so much for your prayers, your prophecies, your financial support. It was really it felt like a whole body endeavor. So thank you. There we are. There we are on our way. Yeah. We'll give you a brief overview of the trip. We'll go to the next slide. Nope. Actually, is there an agenda? Yeah. Oh, and the next slide. There we are. So I think Candace posted an agenda of the trip so you guys could know what we were up to every day. We largely stuck to that. Although we did a youth retreat on the first Saturday we were there from like 8:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night, and church the next morning was not happening. So we took a few more breaks for rest. I don't think we quite realized how intense some of those experiences would be, and we needed to make sure that we rested and took care of ourselves while we were there. So basically that was our agenda. Mostly we spent time at a preschool, a nursery school called Roots of Hope that Julie and Carla will tell you about. We visited widowed grandmothers in Kajabi Town. A number of us went and visited those grandmothers. We had, again, a youth retreat, a long, intensive, and incredible day with the young people who are being sponsored through the Kenya Initiative. Ray and Carla spent time at a men's conference evening, which was incredible. Ray preached at a Sunday service. So those were some of the things that we did while we were gone, besides the 32 hours of travel each way. So that was our trip. Early in our trip, we spent some time with a woman named Elizabeth Macharia, and actually she had us in her home for dinners most evenings. Her two sons, Isaac and Caleb, were the first people sponsored through university through the Kenya Initiative. So it was great to reunite with Elizabeth. And she said something really profound that first night. She said, "You have changed our story. You have changed our story." You know, and sponsoring her sons through university, it changed the whole life of that family. And that set the theme for the trip. You have changed our story. So we were involved in the changing stories of the Kenyans. Our stories changed. And we would like to share those experiences of change stories with you today. So we're each going to be speaking for about 5 minutes, just giving a report individually of what we experienced, and then we'll close. And we'll be. It's really hard actually to confine ourselves to 5 minutes each because there's so much to tell you. If you're as well, you can't be as excited as we are, but if you're even a little bit as excited about it, you're welcome to join us tonight too, and we'll just keep talking and take your questions and stuff. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Ray.
I guess it is my turn. Next. You know, in planning the retreat, for me, it was like the focus of the trip, because I'm daily mentoring a lot of the young people who are going through school and many others. But then I was asked by a pastor, you can see here, Pastor Jose Maniera, if I would speak on Friday night. And I thought, sure, I'll speak to a group of, 12 people or so. He's got a class. And the numbers kept on growing. And by the time, after I had said yes and he started planning, he wanted to take advantage of me, he invited 350 people. And, eventually about 100 people showed up. Next. There he is. And, there's just so much to share. There is just so much to share. One of the joys and privileges of the trip for me was I made a really close relationship with two pastors and was able to be involved in mentoring them both on the trip and establishing a relationship with them. And I must say, we were talking about carriers of the move of God, and it continues to move. It continues to move into these men who really have a heart for God. We're planting seeds. We're planting words. In one sense, this church, what God is doing in this church was there, and it was planting seeds there. You all were there in that respect. So I got a chance to speak, and there'd been a lot of support on this end about that evening. Pastor Hosea said this was really important. This would be a turning point, and I took that to heart. And so I prayed, I listened, to the word I was to give, and the word was God's exchange program. And I talked about who God really is. I started off with saying, God is not mad at you, God is mad about you. I started talking about what it means to be in love, and I'm sure most of the people here have been in love. And I said, that's how God feels about us. And if you're in love, the thing you want most is for the other person to feel the same way about you. And that's how God feels. And then I read, Isaiah 53. I couldn't read through the whole thing without breaking down because he was despised and rejected. Jesus gave his life for us. This is a Messiah. This is a picture of God. I was really trying to change the picture of who God was. And then I went to God's exchange program in Isaiah 61 and talked about that God wants to exchange our mourning, our ashes, the ashes in our life, the things that have been gone up in smoke, the disappointments, how God wanted to change them. And if we enter into that exchange program, what begins to happen is we become trees of righteousness. We begin to rebuild the ancient ruins, and our generations will be restored. And I don't think I've ever just allowed myself to be as just in the flow and speaking prophetically in my life. I mean, this was a real stretching time for me personally. I'll just finish and then on to Laurie. Again, there's so much that was imparted because, this is a church that is alive. The most important word that we can say to God is yes. And I know that the leadership here and you all are saying yes to God, and just there's no limit. And I experienced just an incredible outpour in Kenya, in myself and the team saying yes over and over again. So I'm going to let Laurie talk a bit.
just to continue that a little bit, there were words when we were launched. There were words, prophecies for us before we left, and Karen Mahoney had that word about God's exchange program and the trees of righteousness. You know, the exchange is for a reason. It's to create these oaks, these trees of righteousness, and that piece translated into Ray's talk at the men's meeting. So you really did come with us. Now, in terms of my own experience, my focus on the trip was organizing the youth retreat. As some of you know, I teach at Queen's, and I have a real heart for young people in their 20s. So I focused on organizing the youth retreat and presenting there. That is just an itinerary of what we did on that retreat. It was a fantastic day, way beyond what we could have hoped or imagined. So I gave a talk. Some of you may have heard it here on turning from the thief to the shepherd, based on the verse, "The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came so that they would have life and have it abundantly." So in the moment, I modified it culturally for the young people there. And then I facilitated a workshop on communication skills that everyone really participated in very well. And we all spent time praying for and connecting with the young people in one-to-one conversations. It was a really, really rich day. I also spent some time visiting with the widowed grandmothers that Ray and I had met in 2016 and giving them the book Ray and I had created about them. So, next slide.
Yeah, one of the, after Lori gave her talk, we basically gave an altar call to anybody who wanted to be prayed for, and we had a room set aside, not knowing what was going to happen. And it was phenomenal. I would say well over a dozen, young people came forward.
It was incredible. Like, we didn't know if people would want to come for personal ministry or prayer. And I looked around the room, and the room was lined up with young people. Like, it was really phenomenal. Yeah.
We actually had it split into prayer teams. It was just such an honor. So I've mentioned before about this book called The Grandmothers of Kenya. This is a labor of love with Lori and I when we were there in 2016. Lori did interview the women, and I did a photo shoot, and it's been a work in progress. And yeah, okay, sorry. I'm just really comfortable here. Yes. Anyway, so what happened is that this book has been processed. God has overcome so many obstacles in the printing process. We're still in need of some printing funds. But anyways, we were able to get literally at the last minute 24 copies to take with us to bring to the grandmothers.
Next slide. There we are. I think there might be another slide as well. They were so delighted to see themselves in a book. It was incredible. So was Ray. Like, see, like they're just so excited. Yeah. So it was such an honor spending time with these women, to reacquaint with them because we had spent time with them before. To pray together with them was really extraordinary.
One of the little highlights is one of the women, the grandmothers, recognized me, and she took my hand and had to bring me into her house. And there on this, this clay wall was a photocopy of her and I from 2013, and she had to show this to me. The only two pictures in the house, and she was so delighted.
Next slide. And the other focus for me was spending time with Magda, who is a surrogate daughter to Ray and I. We've been sponsoring her through Teachers College. She taught for the first time last year and was voted the best teacher in the school by all the students and the parents. And now she's going back to school to get further qualifications. So I spent lots of time with her. I'll just say the challenges of the trip for me were the traveling. It's an arduous trip. The cold. It was freezing. It's winter in Kenya, so it was much colder than we expected. And the sometimes overwhelming need we were faced with constantly. The blessings for me were the honor of meeting and spending time with the youth and grandmothers. I was so impressed by their character. Incredible people. The strength, the faith, and the joy of these grandmothers who are living in really desperate conditions. And the gratitude, earnestness, intelligence, and dedication of the young people. Wish I could haul them all back to Canada and teach them here. I also felt so blessed by your support. I felt carried along in prayer and by the grace of God through the whole trip. How did I encounter or see God at work? I had this really phenomenal experience of God just dropping ideas in my mind that I knew were not mine. And they led to really extraordinary things. So Carla will be talking about one of those things tonight, and I will too, but they led to kind of miracles, So that was really neat and new for me. How did I see people's stories change? Praying for the young people at the retreat, I knew from their response that they were receiving an impartation of strength, hope, and vision from the Holy Spirit. The impartation there was so powerful. I spent lots of time with Magda and spoke with her mother and realized that Ray and I needed to take on the whole family and support them all. So we met families of kids who are so bright and so full of potential, and we just realized that we need to take on some families, and continue to change the stories of families' lives. And the other thing, my story changed. I felt God strengthen me. I felt myself growing in strength and authority there in a way I had never experienced before. And I'm back changed. I am changed. Yeah. Okay. And I'll turn it over to who's next?
Some of us at the retreat.
Oh, that's at the youth retreat and the young people who are being sponsored. And now I'm turning it to Julie.
Just a second here. So if you get to come tonight, I will be explaining how this book helped me connect with the children in Kenya that we met and how it caused my heart to grow 2 sizes bigger. There are so many stories to tell, but we had to limit ourselves. So, next slide. Oh, before we went, we were connecting with emails and back and forth, and I thought, this is a mission trip. I'm telling everyone it's a mission trip. I'm buying stuff to give. We're there to give. And then God kind of changed my perspective. He said, just a minute. You're taking time off work you're taking vacation days off work. This is for you too, this trip. This is a trip for you to have some fun, some refreshment, connecting with people, and to have good times and laughter. Just rip-roaring, gut-wrenching laughter. And it changed my perspective. And we had many times of the laughter. But in the meantime, Ray had responded to the email with this picture. Because I had said, we'll be Jesus' hands and his feet, but let's also be his laughter. And then Ray came back with this picture, and that just set the tone of the group that we were there to give, yes, but we were there to just be with the people and just connect with them and have some good memories as well as blessing them. So this girl here, she was one of my main reasons why I wanted to go to Kenya. We have been supporting her since 2015. She was a very bright, quiet little girl in grade 8 who was extremely intelligent. And Elizabeth, who we talked about, had pointed her out to Ray, saying she needs some financial support. So Glenn and I sponsored her through boarding high school and through university, and now she is entering her last year of university to become a doctor. So what happened, though, is we got some really, really good quality time, and it has taken our relationship to a deeper, deeper level that would never have happened had I not met her in person. And now I know how to use WhatsApp so I can communicate with her better. So when we had talked about going to Kenya, I knew that education was my thing. And Ray was saying, what's on your heart? Where's your passion? And I thought about Roots of Hope, which is a preschool connected to John. And John he kind of runs things in Kenya for Ray and a couple other ministries. And this is one of his ministry. It's actually on his property. It's a preschool for children 3 to 6, and then they go off to school. So I thought, yep, okay, I'm going to focus on them, and I raised some money so I can buy some school supplies, bought stuff here, been collecting stuffed animals for years, got those out of a box. I was all ready to go to Kenya and make a difference. Yay! Well, 2 days before we were scheduled to go there, John happens to mention that the children don't know English. They don't speak English. And I'm going, how can we communicate with them? Like, I just felt shattered. All my ideas just fell down. So then someone in the team had reminded us that someone had said, touch. Touch can communicate when words can't. So I thought, okay, we can do this, Carla. We can do this. Deep breath, on we go. Then the next shock was that John didn't see this as an educational program. That was secondary. He saw it as a feeding program because these children were so poor. This is the poorest of the poorest school. The parents couldn't afford to even pay for this. These children didn't always have food. So if they came to Roots of Hope, then they at least got breakfast and they got lunch, a nutritional lunch. And so that was his idea of what Roots of Hope was all about. And here I'm thinking, it's a preschool, and thinking North American standards. So I thought, okay, we'll work with that. And when we did go shopping for supplies, we got plastic bowls and plastic cups, because that's what the need was. You know, so much for educational toys. So then we go, and it's wonderful, but the next big shock. I'm thinking preschool in Canadian standards. Here it was a concrete floor, the walls were corrugated sheets of metal. The government wanted to shut it down because it didn't quite meet some of the standards, but they did allow one of the groups. There were no toys, there were no pencils, there were no learning centers. The chickens just walked in whenever they felt like it. Carla asked at one point to the teacher, did the sheep ever come wandering in? And at that exact same second, a sheep stuck its head through the door to check out things, but he wasn't allowed in. So it was a shock, but then the next big shock were the children themselves. They were absolutely amazing. They were so loving. They were so enthusiastic about learning, which is done mostly through rote. And so in the classroom, you'll see that there's potato sacks hanging down, and someone had painted words and pictures on it, and the teacher would stand around, go around, and point to the stuff, and the kids would repeat. It was in a language they didn't even know, but to start them to learn their alphabet and stuff. So that was rather a shock, but the children were just so amazing. The first time we went, there were 20 children in the preschool, the regular preschool, and they just were so loving and caring, and high fives, fist bumps, and then the hugs and the cuddles, and we didn't need words to communicate. We just, our hearts connected in a really meaningful way, and they were just so much fun. And we went outside. We went outside and we played with them. And then Carla and I and John went shopping, and in addition to the stuff we bought them balls and pencils and exercise books and all kinds of stuff that were needed as well. So then we went again the next week to drop off the resources, and that's when John, with our permission, had invited another preschool in the area. So there were 50 more children that were there. So we had 70 children that day with 3 teachers. So that was an experience. But I do want to, it was just absolutely amazing, but I do want to share a very specific story. So the first time we were there, 20 children, one little boy stood out to me. There was just something about him. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was just something about him. Then I'm talking to Carla, and she says, there's a little boy here, and I've seen real leadership skills in him, and there's just something about him. So I said, well, point him out to me. Well, lo and behold, it was the same child. So we thought, okay, that's interesting. And we shared that with Ray, but we said, you're coming with us next week, but we're not going to tell you who the child is. So with all the excitement and everything going on, it kind of slipped Ray's mind that we had said that to him. So that's fine. So we're there again the second time, and Ray's doing his silly, goofy stuff with the kids. There's 70 children here, okay? 70 children. And he's taking pictures, and he comes to me, and he says, there's a little boy here. I've prayed for him twice. I've taken a lot of pictures of him because there's just something special about him. So I said, point him out to me. And lo and behold, it was the same little boy that Carla and I had both noticed. So I talked to the teacher. His name is Elijah. He's 7 years old. He's too old for preschool, but there's no money, absolutely no money for school fees for him, so he's just staying behind. But he's a very bright little boy with leadership potential. So I come home, I tell Glenn this story. I said, can we sponsor him? And he says, oh, of course. So the wheels are now in motion that he will start school in the new year. Their new year starts in January, and his school fees will be provided. And this little boy, Elijah is his name, will be able to go to school. So it's just so exciting. So I went thinking these are the needs, and then I find out what the needs really are. And it's not all these educational toys, which we did leave some, and that's wonderful. But just knowing the stories, now I can share the stories and let others be aware as well. And who knows where God's going to take this, but as first starts, Elijah's off to school.
Good morning. You get me twice. I have my phone up here because I have no idea where my notes went. But I sent an email, thank the Lord, to Ray, so now I still have them. Yay. It's really interesting because this original team, plus a couple other people, were supposed to go in 2020. I didn't go to this church in 2020, so God just put it on hold so that I could come. And I actually only made my decision in June. And it was a fleeting thought, like Lori talks about, the thought that came into your head. I thought, I wonder if they're going to take anybody else with them. And a couple weeks later, I had gotten the church email that asked if you have it in your heart to go to talk to Ray. So I did that. And I went, oh, wow, that's a lot of information. Just sort of, okay, I'm going to talk to Devin, we'll figure it out. And I get home and I say, Devin, and he just was like, go, we'll figure it out. And there was a lot of figuring out. I have 3 kids, I stay home. So summer is not the time to travel around the world and leave your husband alone with 3 kids. But you did awesome, honey, so thank you. Yes, thank you. And to the other people that brought them food and had them over for dinner, thank you. That took a weight off my heart. And like Julie said, my heart grew. And I didn't really know what I was going for. People kept saying, what are you doing? Because, when you go to mission trip, people build things, right? Well, we weren't doing that. So I just kept, the thing I kept saying was, well, I'll just find out when I get there. I don't know, I'm just going. And boy, I found out what he had in store. So my question is, how do you go 32 hours around the world and have no idea why you're going? It's knowing what God says. So it comes back to the launch that we had. I'm going to cry because those words carried us. Things like bubble of protection, all those bags we put under the plane that they were going to be in Nairobi when we got there. Being timing and getting places. And Nairobi is a very different place than Canada. Everything is fenced and there's always somebody with a gun somewhere nearby. So that was a little different than my country house where I have nobody around me and there isn't a gun in sight. So there was just protection. We just knew that this was just how they did things. Everybody seemed, okay, we stick our bags in the metal detector before we go into the hotel. This is just what we do. Nobody really went, that's weird. But it was strange. And the other word was touch, like Julie touched on. Because we met all these kids and, well, they can't speak English, but they really thought how we talked was funny. Every word out of our mouth made them giggle. And then as they got more comfortable with us, it was their touch on our skin. And the second time we were there, it was our hair. So I had one little boy try to put my hair in a ponytail, and the teacher was giggling. And I said, Teacher Agatha, don't I look beautiful? And she laughed even harder because my hair was sort of over here and he was trying to figure out how to use the elastic, and he tried to braid it, but it doesn't stay without an elastic. Wow, I'm so not even on my notes. I'm so sorry, guys. So I haven't even left yet. So the prophetic words that we were given was what carried us. And one particular one came from a friend of mine. And I'll read you what she said. She said, I was praying for you today, Carla in Kenya. Carla in Kenya. I like how that sounds. And it started to rain. I couldn't help but laugh as God told me that he would bring rain to Kenya. I believe it's while you were there as a sign that he brings his fullness to Kenya through you. I received that. I had no idea what that meant. But I went with these things. Bubble of protection, touch as the universal language. What God was going to do, I was ready. Like Ray said, yes is important. And we get there. We finally get to where we're staying. I wake up the first day and go, okay, I'm here. What's the plan? And we sat down for breakfast, and Ray asked me, I want you to come with me to the men's only event. And I'm like, well, I don't qualify. But I will pray about it, and I'll let you know. So that later that day, we went to Roots of Hope, and we're playing games. And nothing reminds you how quickly you're out of the preschool years when someone says, hey, sing a song. I don't know any. I think we sang Father Abraham around and around and over again, and they had no idea what I was saying, but they were following my actions, and I was just, jumping. And anyway, while we were out there, it started to rain. It started to spit, and I stopped. I was like, okay, what is this? Like, what is this? The rain? I have to go back to my notes because. He said to me, this little rain was the size of a man's fist, but to keep watching. So, of course, I went back that night. I said, Ray, I'm going to go with you. We're going to see what the Lord is up to. And so that Friday morning rolled around, and we spent a lot of time just in prayer and just ministering to each other, the 6 of us, just in prayer for this event, because it was bigger than Ray had thought. I was now going. I didn't know, if the hosting pastor would receive me as, I'm a woman, not a man. So we go, and I'm excited to see what the Lord is going to do. And we're in the truck, and I'm explaining myself. I'm here because of this. And I'm telling the story of this prophetic word from my friend. And I finish, and I'm vibrating with excitement, to be honest with you. I'm just like, God is going to, he told me there's a fist, right? Something's going to happen. And the guy next to me goes, it's not supposed to rain. And I was like, oh.
It was drought in that area.
And I was like, okay, but I knew what the Lord had said. So Ray gets up to speak, and the pastor accepted me. He was happy for my presence, and we ate together, and the meeting started. Ray began to preach, and about halfway through his incredible message on the divine exchange, it started to rain. And it didn't just rain, it poured for 2 days. To the point where people are like, can you stop praying for rain? And I'm like, but I didn't ask for rain. And so I'm extremely excited. The person that told me it wasn't going to rain is just as excited now as I am, because now it's raining. And we get to the end of your message, and there was an altar call, and some young men came up, and pastors and Ray and I, we prayed. We put weight on the bar. We took what God told us and shared it. And he was faithful. The words that came were so different for each person, but he was faithful to, as we opened our mouths, he filled it. And that translated to the next day at the retreat was the same thing. And it rained that whole day too. And it was cold. It was very cold that day. But yeah, I just want to read a verse, because this is my prayer for every person that I met, every person that we all prayed for. And it's from Ephesians. It says this, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and the length and the depth and the height, to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. That's Ephesians 3:17-19. And I just really feel like we've been talking about seeds, and that's really what we went. We went with money seeds, we went with faith seeds, we went with prayer seeds, and that God is doing that work. And when we go back, it's going to be a really different place. I also want to say I feel like he was really speaking to the next generation. There were a lot of older men. We met a lot of older women with the grandmothers, but there was something really special and really particular about the next generation. The fathers fathering the next generation, the young men stepping into their potential. I really just feel like this whole trip just pointed that was on God's heart. Yeah, that's. Oh, talk about needing touch and a smile. This little boy, he's not in school. He stood out to me when I stepped out of one of the classrooms. We were doing something, and I came out, and he's sitting there by himself, and he's wet, and I thought he's too little to be here. Like why is he here? So I went up to him and tried to talk to him. Of course, I found out very quickly he doesn't speak English, and so I got him a little book, and I tried to just include him with all the older people, the young people that were there. Got him with a group of kids and what have you, and he had such a profound sadness that I had to go find John and go, can you tell me this little boy's story? I just sat with him. After a while, I realized he wasn't connecting with what was going on. I just sat there, and he kind of moved his chair close to me, and we just kind of sat beside each other. And he would ask me, or try to ask me, for shoes, because he was wearing sandals. And I'm sitting there with him, and I'm freezing. I have a coat, I have a sweatshirt, and I'm wearing 2 pairs of socks in my boots. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this little boy. There's more to his story that I will continue to share, but I was reached down, I took my second pair of socks off, and I gave them to him, and he put them in his pocket. And I'm trying to explain, like, put them on your feet, put them on your feet, put them on your feet. And he just wasn't responding. And he went off and did some things, and it just played on my mind. So I finally took him to John and said, can you tell him to put the socks on his feet? They're in his pocket. And so he finally did, but can I continue? Okay. The story is that this little boy has profound sadness in his eyes because his parents have died. He lived with a grandmother, and 3 weeks ago to the day that we were there, his grandmother had died. And to make matters worse, because it can't get much worse than that, his village burnt his house down because the organizations that John works with built them a new house, and it was nice, and so they burnt it down. I don't understand, but they did, and so now he's homeless. And so he comes to John's property to be fed and to take a shower. And so he was there with us, and we ate 3 meals a day, and 3 times that day, and he was there with us the whole time. But I got him to smile, and that was the only time he smiled, because I said, chapati, and I laughed because I'm a white person saying chapati, and so he smiled, and it's a beautiful smile, and my heart is to keep it on his face, that he knows that people care about him. He has a future. We've been updated. There is a family member who can take care of him. He has a brother too, which was also, we didn't realize at the time. He has a slightly older brother, but they're both now without family, but they have each other. It's a grandmother's sister. She will raise them in the house when it gets fixed. So that's where we're at with my little friend Brian. Yeah. But that's just one. There's so many more. It's just one story. And we just want to do our best with what we have to help. And that's really what the Kenya Initiative is about. It's really so much more than taking them to school. Yeah.
Yeah, it's caring and empowering. Thank you, Carla. That's the trouble when you go to a place like this under God's provision, is you get your hearts broken. Are you next? I'm sorry, I've lost my way. Okay.
Next slide.
Okay. Lindsay. Lindsay's like a daughter to us. She lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but she has such a heart for the Kenyans. And she's been there 4 summers, and it was just such a privilege for her to come with us. Next slide. This is, I'm just going to read what she wrote about this particular photo that there. It was a single moment. I usually don't have those. Usually it's something that accumulates over a period of time. This was a single moment. The moment that I knew that God had wanted me in Kenya longer than I had planned. Lindsay decided to stay for a few extra months. I didn't know why. All I knew was that I had encountered an inner peace that I hadn't encountered in over 5 years. I knew God created me for that peace, to rest from, breathe from, and live from that unexplainable peace. A peace that thrives in uncertainty, a peace that doesn't need a plan, a peace that doesn't need to see what's on the horizon, a peace that knows that God is at the center of it, and that's more than enough. So after some prayer, guidance, and confirmations, I canceled my return flight and quit my job back in Michigan. I was and am fully expectant of what God is up to. I look forward to one day perhaps share the stories that I'm already carrying and the stories that haven't happened yet about how He is moving in both the hearts of the Kenyan people and my heart. Until then, thanks for your continued love and support. I feel it halfway across the world. Asante sana. Thank you very much. Next slide. So I just wanted to share about Lindsay.
Yeah, so we left a missionary in Kenya. Woohoo! That was unexpected and a wonderful gift. Yeah. Next slide. And then we have Amanda. I'll just speak a little bit about Amanda. Amanda's heart is to serve missionaries. That's what she wants to do with her life, is do missionary support as her profession. So this was her first trip, just to get a sense of what missionaries actually experience on the ground. I think it was a real shaking for her. It was, it's difficult if you haven't been through that experience before. So I know Amanda received a lot of shaking, but she was right in there, visiting grandmothers, going to Roots of Hope, So she was a wonderful support to us, and particularly to Lindsay. So we're really grateful that Amanda came with us on that trip. That's her connecting at the retreat with a little girl. That little girl singled out Amanda and Amanda was it for her for that whole day. It was a really beautiful thing to see. So we're very grateful that Amanda was with us. So now I'll just close with a few things. When I talked earlier about Elizabeth Macharia telling us, our stories have changed, our trip was bookended by powerful words from Kenyan elders. And one of them was Elizabeth. And one of them we met on our very last day there. Her name was, next slide. Oh, right. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm just going to backtrack just a second to say the other two things, major things we did, was go on safari, which was fantastic. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say, like with the rains, the very first day we were on safari, it was the afternoon. We were out in the middle of nowhere, right? You're out in the savannah, the grasslands, in the middle of nowhere. It poured like I have never experienced in my lifetime. Like that thunderstorm was powerful. We had hail, the windows were icing up, like the rain was torrential, and I thought, here we are on dirt roads in the middle of nowhere. We're going to be here for days. Like I can't imagine us ever getting back to our camp. Like it was kind of scary, but incredible. I'm sure you were in your glory, right? It was raining. When we went on safari, we took 6 Kenyans with us. And because, of course, they need to experience their own country, and they can't afford to go. So it was an honor to have Kenyans with us. And John said, of the groups that he oversees when they go to Kenya, that never happens with other groups. It's only our group that takes Kenyans along with us on safari. So it was wonderful. And then the other thing we did was go to a wedding. So that's Isaac, who was the first young man sponsored through the Kenya Initiative. He invited us to go to his wedding to Evelyn. It was a really beautiful event, in spite of the fact that we had to dance by ourselves in front of everyone. There's a lot of dancing at a Kenyan wedding, and they called us Canadians up to dance in front of the whole group, and that was, anyway, an experience. Entertainment for the rest of them, I think. But it was a privilege. It was a privilege to be there. Ray and I walked Isaac down the aisle, along with his mother, and we were invited with the other parents to lay hands on bride and groom and pray for them. So that was a real honor. Now the closing. So here we are on our very last day in Kenya, and the other elder who spoke to us was at the home of Nancy Njeri. Now Nancy is a Kenyan who lives just outside of Nairobi and invited us into her home to give us a meal before we headed back to Canada. And Nancy is the mother of Josephine, who goes to Impact and is a friend of many of us here. And the experience at Nancy's home was a real foot washing. We were tired, we had been through a lot, and she gave us this incredible meal and invited a pastor in to speak to us that day, who gave us a sermon, which, we hadn't expected, but it was incredible. And it was on this verse, this one. No one lights a lamp and then covers it with a bowl or hides it under a bed. A lamp is placed on a stand where its light can be seen by all who enter the house. And as I listened to that, I realized, wow, we were lamps sent to Kenya. We were lights sent to Kenya on the lampstand of everyone here. So thank you again for being such an incredible lampstand, supporting us as we went to be lights in Kenya. And we are also lampstands for the incredible lights inside of those young people and children who need lampstands to support them to become all who they were created to be. So we were honored to be both lights and lampstands to the Kenyan people there. The other cool thing that happened on our last day, we were in the van on the way to Nairobi, and we had a visioning talk among our team. The team experience we had was really phenomenal, Really, it was a God-given thing, our team. And we realized that the Kenya Initiative, that its territories were being expanded. And that was really exciting. So the name needed to change from the Kenya Initiative from Street to School to just the Kenya Initiative. Because not only is sponsorship of children and young people going to continue, but we're supporting grandmothers, the widowed grandmothers as well, and their grandchildren, and whole families. So the territory of the Kenya Initiative is expanding, and we're really excited. And not only will it be Ray and God, obviously, carrying the whole weight on his shoulders, but we have new team members now. So we have Lindsay, who's a missionary in Kenya, who is going to start filling that gap in communication between the people being sponsored and those of us back here. So she'll fulfill that role. Julie is going to take over oversight of the young children, the ones being sponsored in preschool and primary school. So she'll be overseeing that part of the program. And Carla will become the new organizer administrator of the Kenya Initiative. And we are deeply and wildly happy about that. I'll continue supporting Ray as I do, and being like writer, reporter kind of for the group, working on the book and other communications. So we are really excited about the future of the Kenya Initiative. If you want to be part of this with us in any way, of course, we're so glad to have you. And you can support the initiative by your prayers, which I know you will, and so many of you do already support us in prayer, which is so wonderful. In terms of financial support, if you want to give like a donation at any time, just in a general way to the initiative, you're welcome to, or support a particular child, or when the grandmother's book is done, buy a book. There are a lot of ways that you can be part of this. And again, we're welcoming you all to tonight. If you want to hear more stories, we've got lots of them. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. But thank you so much for your attention this morning. And again, thank you for all your support.